Wake up your morning in a brand new way with the positive people, places, events, and things in and around your neighborhood and around the world. No matter where you live, your mornings are about to get better. It's the refreshing way to start your day. No doom or gloom, just bright sunshine no matter what the weather. Metro Magazine with Bonnie McDaniel. Inspiring, informative, intelligent, Ion. Positively the best way to start your morning. Good morning and welcome to Metro Magazine. I'm Bonnie McDaniel, your host, and I am so excited because this morning we have quite the entrepreneur in our studio, and she's here to share about her journey and all of the wonderful things that she's doing to not only help herself, but to help other small entrepreneur businesses in DC. Well, not just DC.
Yes.
Correct?
Not just DC, nationwide.
Nationwide. So join me in welcoming Denise Jackson to Metro Magazine. So my dear, I met you during one of the Women Are Talking summits, and that's probably been 2 years ago?
At least that.
Okay.
I think I met you before then.
Did you?
I just don't know where.
You know what? We move around a lot, right? So it's absolutely possible that that did happen. So I was reading your bio, but I think the thing that really stuck out more than the work that you do for yourself and for other people was the work that you do for your family. And the reason that resonated with me is because a lot of women, especially entrepreneurs, find themselves not only having to take care of themselves, but also to take care of family members, especially, you know, when you reach a certain age, your parents are aging and a lot of stuff happens. So talk about that.
So, yeah, I hate to say the business part's easy. I somehow became the go-to person. I'm the glue. I'm the one that people come to, rely on, they trust for answers or to help with something. So, I want to say it probably started for me when my nephew was born. I was 13.
Okay.
And my sister was in school and she was working, so I was home, and I didn't feel like my parents should be basically babysitting.
Right.
So I stepped in.
Okay.
So that's where that first, I think, transition started. And then after that, I realized that my mom really relied on me, but I didn't know how much. My parents went through a divorce soon after I moved down here 25 years ago. It'll be 26 years in August.
Moved down here from?
Oh, I'm sorry. Moved to DC from New Jersey.
Okay. Okay.
So maybe about a year, or within that first year, they divorced. And I was like my mom's rock then. So I would go home for court appearances, things she wouldn't tell me, but I just want to make sure things were done right. And I think my type A personality just naturally gravitated toward the nurturing and taking care of and making sure everything was in its place. And then just as time went on, if something happened, they were saying, call her. So I just became this that go-to person. That go-to person.
Yeah.
My sister had a stroke 8 years ago. It'll be in May.
Oh, wow.
Massive stroke.
Is she a younger or an older sister?
She is my older sister. It's just her and I. And she was ischemic. They took her skull off. It was the whole 9 yards. Yeah, it was really scary. And I had no idea what condition she was going to be in. So she's still in a wheelchair, but she talks very clear, which is great.
Okay.
The memory loss, which is normal, is there. But I was her cheerleader, her support, her advocate, and sometimes her second brain.
Now, this is the sister who, well, you said there were only two of you.
Right.
With the nephew, was it?
Right. She has two sons.
Okay.
So
this is their mother.
Right. It's their mother. And at the time, one was about to go to college, one was about to move out, and they were living with my mom, and they were freaking out. And I'm like, everybody's still going to do what they do. You're still going to school. You're still moving out. You're still retiring. And I just put myself on hold because I figured it's easy for me to do what I need to do. I need to keep everybody else focused and take care of her. And then they asked me to be the power of attorney.
So it's interesting because you say that it's your type A personality that causes you to be able to step in and basically take over when need be.
Take over is a word that it's a blessing and a curse that people use, and they say.
Yeah, I have a type A personality, and I understand completely what you're talking about. But So there must be something else, though, other than your personality. I know a lot of type A personalities, and not all of them are organized. Not all of them are giving in spirit.
Okay.
What is it that you think it is about Denise that makes you who you are?
Family is important. I was raised that if your family needs something, you help.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't, I would feel guilty if my nephews needed something and I had extra money. Like I was like, okay, they need X. So I was, my dad was very generous. We helped out different family members. My mom was a nurturer. My dad nurtured, but just in a different way.
Right, right.
So I think that's just part of my natural DNA. But I always want to make sure that everything's going as planned. It's done appropriately, because I was always taught to do things in decency and in order. So everything was appropriate. And then I think the other part was I like to sleep at night. So if I can take care of something ahead of time, or if I know something's being taken care of, then I can go ahead with whatever I'm doing. So it's part of my personality. And I've always been, I'm a nerd. So I think I've always been a type A, in that I like things orderly, and I always was productive, and I always wanted to learn, and I just wanted to get the most out of every experience. But just making sure like my family was okay, because again, I felt it's easy for me to do what I do. I need to take the worry off of them. So I deal with the business end first, and then the emotions later, and I just made sure everybody.
Very interesting.
stayed
I
afloat.
didn't, as I started this interview out talking about the fact that I met you a few years ago, we have, there's a lot of kindred spirit there in terms of personality or whatever you want to call it. And your sister being the oldest, the older one, I was immediately, the reason I asked you if she was younger or older, because I was like, maybe it's birth order, because I'm the oldest of my siblings.
Okay.
And I have no idea what it is, but I'm also in a large respect like that. So the thing that is interesting about people like us, though, is that we tend to sometimes take on too much. Talk about that. What do you do when you are overwhelmed?
So there's a couple things. It could be as simple as taking a ride. It could be simple as zoning out on Law and Order with a glass of wine, going to the movies, and sometimes I do stop and say, okay, what do I really need to do? And I'll just stop and just check out, and I'll disappear for a couple of hours and just get away. But then normally I jump back into it because there's things that need to be done.
Sure.
But yeah, I hit a wall at one point. Actually,
that's what I want to talk about, because that is the danger. I've been there when you just feel like, oh my gosh, if someone asks me one more thing, I'm just going to just disappear and never come back.
So the first time when I got into the industry that I'm in, the proposal industry, I was burnt out one time working at MCI years ago. And then it happened again. And at this point I had more responsibility, like, everything with my sister. And actually last March, I had this little mini meltdown. We were supposed to be taking my mom to the hospital to get her last breast surgery because she had breast cancer. And I had this mini meltdown, and I called a friend, and I just lost it. I said, what am I going to do? I said, I've helped so many people, and of all the people that I've helped, there's probably 2 people that could help me if I need something. So if something happens to me, if I get sick, what do I, And he's like, stop helping everybody. I've been telling you, and people tell you, but it's not so easy. Because you feel responsible, and you don't want to feel as though you've left them. So you just don't stop. You're like, I can't just cut everybody off. So I slowly scaled back. I mean, I really hit a wall where I said, I need to take care of me. I have 20 more good years that I want to work and set up my retirement. I need to focus on me. So I just...
You pulled back.
I pulled back, and it wasn't overnight. It was probably a 3-year process of pulling back, cutting off, pruning people that were not edifying. I always had this saying: if you're not helping, you're hindering, and if you're hindering, you're hurting. And if you're hurting, you have to go, because it's not helping my progress at all. It's not helping me grow, and I can give and give and give. But then when the bank is dry, then what?
And you know something interesting, because again, we have a lot of similarities in our personalities. I was talking to a friend of mine years ago, and I am blessed. I know how to do a lot of things very well. And I think that also comes from, even if I don't know how to do it well, I know how to teach myself or to learn how to do it well. And that came from my grandmother, who just really instilled in me that if you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability. And so actually she would say, you know, do it as you would to praise God, you know, for giving you the ability in the first place. So I was talking to a friend, and it occurred to me, because I love to entertain, and I'm always having people over at my house for dinner or lunch or whatever. And it occurred to me, I said, you've never invited me to your home for dinner. And she said, because I don't know what to make for you. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, you do everything so well, so you intimidate me. And I think what happens with people like us is because we seem like we're in control all the time.
Yes.
They don't see the fact that, you know, we have our little meltdowns. We have moments when we're not sure about what the next move is going to be. We are good at when we're brought to the table, we suck it up and we're like, okay, I got to do this. I got to do it right now. Even though 2 minutes ago you were like coming unraveled. That's what happens with people like us.
And that's true. Nobody knows.
Right.
So, I mean, I've had high blood pressure. I've grappled and struggled with depression before. I've done all those things, but nobody knows because they're like, she's strong. She has it. She always has an answer.
And so what happens is everybody keeps coming to you and drawing from your well, and no one ever puts back in because they're not sure what they should be adding to the well, because like she's smart, you know, she knows how to do this, that, and the other thing. So I don't have anything to give her because they're always asking you, as opposed to the other way around.
And then sometimes they don't know what they can offer you.
Exactly.
Or they don't know if it would be enough, or so they do nothing. And I have some friends that are like that. A girlfriend of mine, her sister had a massive heart attack, so she became a single parent like overnight. And I worry about her. And I had a great cousin that just passed away. And so I went through this, oh my gosh, is my life going to be, you know, wonderful when I go? And I was going through something, and she said, relax. She said, you can't be everything to everybody.
Right.
And she said, you have to live. And I was just like, yeah. And then we talked about the whole people not pouring into us because they don't know. And it happens with her. She is the glue. She's that in her family. She is that center. So when everyone gets sick, she goes back to New Jersey, because she's from New Jersey and she moved down to Washington, D.C. and she does the same thing. And
I have one friend, and I have a few. I have one friend who totally gets me. She's my traveling partner. So Thomasina, if you're watching, I'm talking about you. But she's the one who totally gets me. And so whenever I visit her, she had a house in Wintergreen Mountains for years. So when I wanted to run away, I would go to Thomasina's. And she would make all my favorite foods. She would, you know, as soon as I get out of the bed, I was raised, you make your bed. You don't leave the bed, you know, all messed up. And she would deliberately go into the room and she would mess the covers up. She says, you are not allowed to make the bed when you're here. And sometimes we need those people in our lives who will allow us to be us, who look on the other side of that. I don't want to call it a facade because it's not fake.
It's not fake.
That whatever it is that we have.
It's a protective guard to me. I mean, there are things I would go through and I wouldn't tell anybody. I didn't want them to worry.
Exactly.
I didn't want mama to come down and find out it might be worse. Like, so I didn't want to disrupt everybody else's life.
Right.
And in that, I didn't want to step too far into what could be, and then I myself become unraveled because I'm not focused, because I'm worried about this thing. And it could be being sick, it could be just being worn out, whatever it is. But we keep up that face. And then sometimes I know for me, I know that people expect certain things. Certain my family members, they expect me to be a certain way. So I can't Like, I can't just date anybody. I can't, there's no way. There's certain things I cannot do because my family would say, what are you doing? No, no, you can't do that. I am the one, I think sometimes, that they look at as she's doing things the right way.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
And
even though they don't really don't know half the stuff I'm doing, but they're just like, she's doing things the right way. So if I do things that look a little, they're like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So yeah. So there's pressure there.
Yeah, a lot of pressure. And I love this conversation, and we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to talk to you about why we started this conversation out this way, because this woman is doing miraculous work, as I hinted at earlier, for companies and individuals who are trying to get it right. So sit right there. We're going to come right back with more Metro Magazine.
What the hell is going on in there? Get over here right now. You always do this. I can't believe that you haven't learned by this point. A child is abused every 10 seconds in the United States, and 30% of those children will later go on and abuse their own. Help stop the cycle and report child abuse to your local CPS.
If you're just joining us, we're here with Denise Jackson, and we've been talking about what it takes to be a powerful woman. And I've given you a little bit of background on, I have had her give you some background on her personal life, so you can kind of get a sense of what makes this woman so amazing. Denise, when we went to break, I started to hint at the fact that about the work that you're doing.
Okay.
And so I'm going to segue now, if we can, into the work and talk about the things that you've had to do for your personal life and how that's helped you in business, not only to help yourself, but to help other people. What do you think it is about you that makes that happen?
I'm a real person. I'm consistent. I'm the same.
Consistency.
Consistency is key. How you see me personally is how you see me professionally.
And that translates very well, I think, into, especially when you're talking about doing business.
Yes.
Talk about the consistency factor, if you will.
So my values are the same. And no matter who I work for, I let them know it's God first, it's family, and then it's this place, whether, it's this project at this company. So if I have a team, and I've had ministers and people that were, praise musicians, I'm like, that comes first. And some people didn't understand. I'm like, that comes first. If someone is sick, you go take care of your family member, and we have it here. So for me, those values are the same. So that's helped me, number one, stay grounded in business. I didn't get so caught up into the money when I got here in Washington, D.C., because I came from a small rural town. So I grew up with cornfields and peach orchards down the road and honeysuckle bushes. That's where I grew up. So when I came to Washington to live, it was a huge difference. But I kept those same values. That had to be the order, or it just was never going to work.
Are you listening to what she's saying, y'all? There is a secret sauce here, and she's giving it to you this morning. I love that consistency. And you let that permeate every aspect of your life, whether it be personal, whether it be business or social or what have you. And I love that. So we have the consistency factor. What else?
The sense of no matter what you do, and you alluded to it, you said it, you do things to the best of your ability. Excellency is key. If it can't be excellent, if it can't be how you would like to receive it, then don't give it. So if I'm preparing some project and I have some report, it is excellent. The quality is great, down to, it might be paper. I have an older older readers, it's a bigger font. Like I'm taking everything into account. So producing excellency that's what has sustained me.
You remind me of back in my corporate days. I had an assistant, and I remember we had to get this proposal out. And I read through, I did the proofreading, and there was just one, we're talking a period, that was out of place. There was a space between the last word and the period. And I went back to her and I said, and Stacy, you know I'm telling the truth. I said, can you fix this? And she said, nobody's going to notice that. I said, but I did.
Right.
My name is being signed to this.
Right.
So that's the only person that matters in this. If it's good enough for me, then, you know, because my standards are that way.
Right.
Talk about that, especially when I'm sure you interact with a lot of young entrepreneurs and the importance of grammar, the importance of punctuation. I mean, you're basically saying this is the best of who I am when you're giving someone a document, whether it be, you know, a letter over the internet or a hard copy. Talk about the importance of that, because I think that's really key.
Right. I mean, I've been in management positions for a long time, and I used to travel the country 8 to 10 months out of the year. So while I had 4-star generals that we may be preparing a document for, I had people that were not as quality driven. They wanted to produce, they wanted to be recognized, but they weren't quality driven. So for me, I mean, even down to my little cousins that are in college or about to go to school, I'm like, let me see your resume.
Right.
And I will mark it up and give it to them so that they can see, you know, this is how it needs to be done. The grammar has to be correct from texting, all communication.
Exactly.
You know, I say no slang, because once you get used to talking that way, it starts coming through your mouth, and you really don't want to do that. So I help millennials, I help college students. I've mentored for years. And one of the things I've said is you bring your best. I mean,
so not to interrupt you, but sure. I want to talk about our children for a minute, if you will allow me. I know we have a very diverse audience, but I want to talk about our children because for me, you talk about taking care of home first. That's home for me, especially when it has to do with our children. And I know it's not cool to speak the King's English, the Queen's English, or whatever you want to call it, or proper, as a lot of them allude to. However, if that is what's going to, if you've spent 4 years in college and you've matriculated and have gotten that degree, and you're going to let slang keep you out the door, speak to that.
So it started for me with my nephews. My oldest nephew is 35, and when they start getting cell phones and all that, I said, no text talk. If it's you spell it out unless you're really tight for space. They could not speak slang to me. We might joke every now and again, but they just could not communicate with me that way. So I was real stringent. Now he has 2 children, 3 and 1.5. And I said, no baby talk. You talk to them like adults.
That's funny. I never talked to my kids in that baby, you know, that baby slang, if you will. I never. Yeah, I didn't.
Goo goo gaga boo boo.
No. We made full sentences.
Full sentences.
Yeah.
And they answer, you know, you teach them to answer full sentences. So now the 3-year-old speaks articulately, so other mothers say, how do you get her to do that?
Right.
You talk to her like an adult. But that's what I did with him.
Because kids absorb. You know, they are really smart. As a matter of fact, I think we lose a lot of that ability to what's the word I'm looking for? To
shape?
Yeah, as we get older. It happens because that's the best time, as a matter of fact, to teach a second or a third language is when children are very, very small. So, but yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No problem. And then, I mean, we, especially with all the digital age, people they're not making their children read. They've taken cursive out of the schools. How do the kids know how to sign a document when they need to? And I've had my little cousin, she's 12 or 13, and she said, how am I going to know how to sign loan papers? She said, if we don't know cursive, because I write all the Christmas cards in cursive. So she was like, it's nothing wrong with your handwriting. We just haven't looked at this in so long.
That's interesting. And I didn't realize they had taken that out of schools until I read an article, I guess maybe a year and a half ago. And I was like, Oh, wow.
Right. So everything's supposed to be so digital. But my thing is, whatever values you set, it's not about giving them things. It's about working. So I used to go to my parents' jobs. I, showed my nephews what I was doing. Here, I would drag it home and say, this is what I do for a living. And I would show them.
Yeah, I did the same thing with my kids.
Right.
Yeah.
And I said, you let them know the value. So to me, speaking proper English is proper English. And sometimes I tell my nephew, my younger one, he's 27 now, but when he was looking for a job, I would say, okay, remember, you're representing the whole family here, so no pressure, but you're not just representing you, buddy. And we would laugh, and he said, oh, right, I'm supposed to talk this way. I said, no, you talk proper English like you were taught in school.
Right, right.
I said, that's what you need to do. I said, you don't see, CEOs talking slang. I said, it doesn't happen. I said, even in the music industry, it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
So,
it doesn't.
So I think that's not stressed. I think people are too easy on children because they want to give them a break and life is
they
so
want to be their
hard.
friends.
Right. And I said, but prepare them for the harshness when they go out there because the world will eat them alive.
It sure will.
And do you really want them home at 30 years old still trying to say, I don't know what I'm doing?
And there's nothing sadder than a 30, 40-year-old person who's angry because they think the world has been against them. You really, in a large sense, worked against yourself.
Right.
Not acknowledging the fact that all of that education, all of the sacrifice that was made for you to gain that education, was done for your benefit.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it's a bigger issue. One thing that I noticed is children started to believe that talking another dialect outside of the King's English or proper English was acceptable because the newscasters start doing it, the sportscasters start doing it. Everybody started to do it. So when everybody starts to do it, it's like, oh, this is acceptable. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It is still not acceptable. If you want to go make a presentation at Harvard, that is not going to fly. So then they say, I want to go to these big schools, but you have to be prepared.
You sure do.
And if it's not taught at home, it's hard to come back. They can do it. It's not that it can't be done, but they don't see the reason why. They say, well, mom and dad didn't do it. The schools didn't do it. People on TV don't do it. So what's the big deal?
And it's so funny. I have a lot of nieces and nephews. And so I sometimes hear them whenever we have family gatherings. They're like, you can't talk like that to Auntie Bonnie.
That's me.
I'm the one. I'm like, okay. Auntie Bonnie knows the slang, so even if you say it, I said, but no, you're going to come to me and we're going to have a conversation. We're going to communicate. They say Auntie Bonnie talks proper. Well, I went to school, so it's like I'm not wasting all that education and time I put in.
Right.
Yeah, I could,
Right. Even with text responses, sometimes my nephew would just put K, and I would say, no time for the O. Like, what's going on? It's just another letter. Yeah.
Oh, guys, so let's talk, if we will, about your books, because I'm sure that a lot of the knowledge and a lot of the inspiration for the journey that you've traveled over the course of your life has inspired you to write these for entrepreneurs. So these are 15 inspiring entrepreneurs. This is actually people who are inspiring others. I will admit I haven't had a chance to read them.
No problem.
And so talk about the challenges and what are the things that make these people stand out. Give me an example.
There is a woman, Jean Kelly.
Okay.
She was sleeping on her mother's couch. She was going through a divorce.
How old was she?
She was in her early 20s.
Okay.
So she's basically homeless outside of sleeping on mom's couch.
And you know what? A lot of the kids now and grown-ups call it couch surfing. Yeah. When my daughter told me one of her friends who had 2 degrees, and she'd come for Christmas one year, and she said, oh, can she stay for a week? I'm like, well, she can stay for a couple of days. I said, I don't forget which president said after 3 days, people and fish.
Right.
It's time to. So she says, oh, she couch surfs. She couch surfs, and she goes all over the country. She finds friends. She doesn't have a home. And she goes and she hangs out a week here, a month there, and she couch surfs all the time. So I'm sorry, I digressed, but
yeah, I'd never understood that concept.
Yeah.
But so she was homeless on her mama's couch, and it was just for some months. She was going through a divorce. Her credit was shot, and she said there are other women that are going through this too. And she created a company around, a consulting company around helping women in debt that are going through divorces.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean,
And tell me her name again.
Jean Kelly.
Jean Kelly.
Yeah,
Okay.
she is, you know, it was that something to nothing type of story where she really started out of nothing. And as she was trying to pull her credit together and get it back on
And
track.
so she helped other women.
She helped other women.
Yeah. So give me another example.
There is Deborah McSweeney. So Deborah McSweeney owns mycorporation.com, and she bought it from Intuit. So she was,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she was working in corporate, and then she wanted to do something different. So that's what she did. And for her, it wasn't a something to nothing, but she was able to just help people globally do their LLCs and really start the foundation, because a lot of people want to start businesses and they don't do it right. And they're basically doing something out of the back of the van or something like that. Like they're not even getting an EIN. And I mean, you can do that. I mean, I did it.
You can go online.
Right.
You know, irs.gov and look at forms, and they'll,
Right.
You can,
You can get on the phone and you get it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, I started my business without my EIN, but it was just for 2 years, just because I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing. And then after that, I just went and did everything that I was supposed to do. So they have all the business forms and everything right there, contracts, all types of things for people. So
excellent.
yes.
And is there anyone else who, because you have 15, so give me one more.
15. There is a woman in Bulgaria that's in the book, and she started a virtual assistance company and was released from her job and just started helping small companies just basically to survive. And she has a global virtual assistance company where she helps people in all types of administrivia.
Wow. Yeah. What drove you to, inspired you to write this book?
So I just received a certification about money archetypes.
Okay, talk about, what is that?
Oh, so money archetype is like a money personality.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like just like a personality assessment, but it's about money and what money is in your life and how you interact with money and what your money personality is. Are you a spender? Like I'm a nurturer. I was a nurturer, and I'm a ruler now.
A ruler?
A ruler. So I build empires. That's what I do. I build empires.
So how do you know what your personality is? So you have this assessment.
There's an assessment. It takes maybe 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, girl, you need to give that to me. I'm still trying to figure out what's my money quotient, if you will.
So it's an assessment, and then you get scores, and you take the top 3. So you have your primary. Sometimes people tie on the second, and then you figure out who you are. But this is the funny thing. I took this 10 years ago, and then I took it last September. And it shifted because I was a nurturer before. I was giving away everything. So September, I had a new attitude, and it shows. So I was the polar opposite. Nurture is now down at the bottom, and I'm like ruler, connector, which I do connect people all the time. And I want to say alchemist or maverick. So that really fits me. And I took it, and I was so intrigued because it just didn't talk about money. So it's not all about finances totally, but it shows your leadership, it shows your personality, it shows how you handle your personal relationships. So it really is all encompassing, even though it's a money archetype. So I was so intrigued when I took it the second time. I was like, I want to be certified in this. And that's how I came up with the Money, Leadership, and Life series. Because your money shows how you lead. How you lead shows the type of lifestyle you end up with.
Wow.
Which then really dictates the money, and it's a constant cycle. So that's how I came up with that. And I started out with entrepreneurs first. I am going to have a corporate leg to that. But I put a call out for entrepreneurs and people from all over the world, because I also have a woman from Chile in there. She does the same thing actually, but she does it for Christian women.
Wow.
Yeah, and for the Hispanic community. So all of her stuff is in Spanish.
Yeah, I'll tell you, because I think one of the other qualities that people like us have is that we know a lot, but we don't really know we know a lot.
Know a lot.
And my son is so funny. A couple of days ago, because I have a consulting thing that I do on the side as well. And he said, Mom, he says, what are you doing to grow that? And I said, well, I'm looking for people who are going to pay me.
Right.
Because everybody comes to you and they have these grand ideas. Right. And they start out with a couple of months and then it's like, oh, well, I don't have the money. And right. I'm like, me with my bleeding heart, I'm like, oh gosh, you know, I really want to help them. Right. And, you know, consequently, you don't have money yourself because right. you're giving. So what do you do with someone like myself who just, I don't know.
So this is what I do.
Okay.
So I have 20 years proposal development experience. So I help companies win government bids. It really taught me, especially working around all the military people, that you have to have a stop. You know, you don't do anything before, if the ink is not dry, the deal is not done.
Right.
You know, so one of the things that I started doing was helping people with their business ideas and really seeing like what is the problem. So the assessment could be one thing. Sometimes I can just talk to people and find out what's going on. And I just help them come up with a plan to stop it.
Yeah.
And do something else.
Well, I will say in my defense, I have recently, you know, and there's this one young man who just, I think he's very, very smart.
Okay.
And I had to say to him, I said, you know what? I have a friend. She's a friend that I really admire. So Mickey, I admire you. She said to me one day, she goes, darling, I could stay home for nothing. She says that's what you need to tell your, you know, people.
Right, I can stay home for nothing.
Stay home for nothing, you know, especially when you've entered into an arrangement and the idea is that it is a for-profit arrangement.
Right.
And even though I may love you and just think you're brilliant or whatever, at the end of the day,
and even though we're type A, we have such a big heart because we do know so much and things come easy for us. Right. Things come so easy that we almost have a problem sometimes valuing because we're like, oh, let me help this person. And then you just stop and then sometimes you just change your contract arrangement. Change your conversation saying, hey, this is how the contract is. Because when you go into a contract with someone, they don't let you off the hook. No,
they expect. And as a matter of fact, this young person, I said to him, like I said, he's very smart, very good, you know, idea. And with me, it's like, you go into business, you need a business plan. And I said, so where's your business plan? And he's like, I don't have one. He goes, can you help me write it? And immediately, because the business plan, it's like, I know how to do that. And it's easy, it comes easy to me. And I started writing, I'm like, wait a minute. I went back, I said, no. I said, your business plan, first of all, helps you to validate whether or not it's something you should be doing in the first place. And it also helps you to lay out a plan of action. And if someone else does that for you, then you're left out of the process. So I said,
they're not even vested.
Here's a great, and there's a great, it's on the internet. It's called Life Plan.
Oh, right. Yes. Life Plan is good.
It's really, really good. I said, here is a tool. And I said, if you follow the instructions, by the time you get done, you'll have your business plan. I am not writing it for you.
Right. And maybe that's the caveat. You do this and then call me back.
Right.
It doesn't have to be perfect. Just call me back.
And that's what he did.
Right.
But I made him do it. He goes, does this make sense? I said, does it make sense to you? He's like, Miss Bonnie. I'm like, well, does it?
Right.
Because you say you want to do this. You have a passion. And I love that. I hate how people overuse that word. You say you have a passion for it.
If you have a passion, you'll do anything for it.
Exactly.
Really,
exactly. And, you know, when you sit down and you write a business plan, all that flowery talking you do,
it's gone.
It's gone because she's like, oh boy, this really is a stupid idea.
Exactly.
So it really does help you to kind of assess, if you will, what it is you say you want to do.
Yes.
So business plans are a must if you're talking about going into business.
They're a must.
Yeah. So.
And it's not, some people say, oh, you only need it if you're going to get a bank loan.
No, you need that. That's your diagram. You don't take a trip cross country without a map.
Right. That's your milestone. I did it for years until it became such second nature, like I knew where I was going. But the first 7 years.
You really do need to map out where you're going, why it makes sense, the strategy you're going to do. And by the way, what happens when, you know, that first, second, third milestone, what happens when you don't reach it? How are you going to recalibrate? Because that's what you do. Siri does that all the time. You get off course. And she's like recalibrating. You have to operate the same way. You can't be stuck
Exactly.
in a certain way. And a business plan, that is one of the greatest things that I was taught. I learned that in my first year in college. I was at Florida A&M. I graduated from Rutgers. I went 2 years at A&M and 2 years at Rutgers.
Did not know that. Okay.
And Dr. Sybil Mobley, she was the head of the business. She was the business of the School of B at A&M, and that was one of the things she taught. She's like, you have to know how to do a solid business plan.
Right.
And the idea that I don't know that this is commonplace. A lot of business schools, a lot of schools that have business majors, let them graduate without that. That's unconscionable. I mean,
I think sometimes people use it now more because it's so many venture capitalists. They may be doing it again, but yeah, it's. I'm not sure.
I know some business majors who never wrote a business plan before, and I'm like, how does that happen?
Right.
You know?
To me, that's part of the curriculum somewhere in there.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, we digressed a little bit. So let's go to the next one.
Yes.
Growing great entrepreneurs. Boy, this is a good one.
Yes.
So talk about this. This is essential strategies to step up your game in 21 days.
That's all it takes, 21 days. So
you know I'm going to read these, right?
Yes. So they were
so I can be in the next one of these that you do.
So they were supposed to be together, and I said, you know, too long. I'm busy. People are busy. I don't want to read that much, and other people don't. I have so many books that I have a bookmark in chapter 2, maybe 3, and that's it.
You just need the nuggets. I mean, I love this.
Right. So I cut the fluff.
She cut the fluff.
Everything, and it's just meat. It's all the books, because there are more coming. They'll be under 100 pages. You can read. You can read them all in 60 minutes or less. And that book was something I wanted to make sure people got exactly what they needed that trips them up. So I have my 7-step manage like you own it plan in there. I have things in there about things you need to know. Yes, you need to know about your credit score. Yes, you need to know how to take time off. Yes, you know, there's certain things you need to do. If you really want to lead in the industry, then you need to study the industry. You need to study that and know it. Don't wait for the meeting. Don't wait for somebody to come tell you. You need to know it basically better than who you're working for or better than your competitors.
You know, it's something interesting, somewhat related, and I'm going to give you a clue. If you apply for a job and the person graces you with an interview, take time to go on the website and learn as much as you can about the company. Yes. I've had young people come to me to be interviewed, or people in general, I won't say just young people. And I said, so tell me what you know about my company. Well, I didn't really have a chance to go and look. I said, so you want to come work for me? I said, how do you know you want to work for me?
Right.
That is that's such an easy thing. And even if you're going to ask for funding, is another example. Find out the way to match funding with funders, or with people who are looking for funds, rather, is to match up what their directive is. What is it that they're trying to accomplish? And if you line up with that, chances are very good you're going to get it, because people want to give funds to things that help to expand an idea that they have. But a lot of people don't take the time. And talk about the importance of that.
Even before social media, I mean, we did have the internet long enough. So, you know, my thing is, look the company up. Look up, you know, at least they had the website.
Right.
You could see press releases and news clippings. Study that. See the contract they just won. Look at maybe a scandal that's going on. See where their gaps are. See what they're about to build or something that they're about to introduce. You need to be able to tell them enough that they're like, whoa, you really studied us.
Exactly.
And most people don't. I used to make my nephews do it. Like outside of like McDonald's and Target, I'm like, you look up that company, see what's going on there, and ask them a question that's related. That's related, that you can only find in a news clipping or something, so that they know that you're well read. And a lot of people don't do that with say venture capitalists. They're like, oh, well, Facebook received money, so we're LinkedIn, we're going to go after money. You know, just because you may be in a social media place, you don't do that.
Right.
You say, okay, what is their mission? You know,
Exactly.
look at, I know for me, for government, with government contracts, what is that new agency's head? What is their new mission? What is their new hot spot? What, you know, are they saving the dolphins? What are they doing? Make sure you can align and speak to that, because they're now, people are now bringing their personal life into the professional realm, and they're able to deal with charities and things like that. And it could be a charity that you can align with and still work with whoever the company is.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're dealing with people. And people feel, they have emotions that drive their decisions.
Right.
And you need to be tapped into what are those emotions so that you can be a part of the decision that is made to benefit your company.
Right.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to tap in and say, okay, I can even help them on this private mission that they've made professional, or they brought into the corporate realm or their company, and it be something you can actually do. Like, don't talk about Habitat for Humanity and you really don't want to build a house. You know, you can't do that. You really have to say, I can do this. I will go out and help them save the whales. I will go out to the beach. If you don't like sand, then you probably don't want to say that.
You probably don't want to do that.
Don't want to say that.
And you know, the other thing too is that I know that, because I do it when I'm looking to align myself or, connect with someone, your social media footprint, or your footprint online, period, matters. Speak to that for a minute.
Time.
Yeah.
If you don't Google yourself every month, you better know what's out there. The social media footprint, what you put out there, again, I always talk about my nephews and my little cousins. If there's something on their page, I text them, get that off your page.
Yeah. And you know what? On that note, I want you to hold just for a second, because I really want to delve into this. We're going to come right back after a quick break and talk more about social media. Sit right there.
We don't have to tell you that you've got a lot to be thankful for and a lot to look forward to. It's hard to imagine how much you could lose if you lost just one thing, your sight. Before you notice, you may be in very serious trouble, because once you lose your vision to glaucoma, it's gone forever. Groups at high risk for glaucoma include African Americans and Hispanics over the age of 40, those with a family history of glaucoma, people with diabetes, and anyone over age 50. The only way to detect glaucoma before your sight starts disappearing is with a dilated eye exam. A dilated eye exam is a simple, painless test that can detect early signs of glaucoma and other eye diseases. Call your eye doctor today to schedule a dilated eye exam. After all, you have a lot to look forward to. Get a dilated eye exam before glaucoma gets you. Get the facts. Visit preventblindness.org/glaucoma.
Okay. So Denise, we were just beginning to talk about social media and that footprint. And yes, I Google myself all the time. And sometimes it's scary. It's like, oh my gosh. Scary from the standpoint there's a lot out there, because as I'm working every day, I forget about the amount of content and things that I put out there, because I'm a busy woman.
Yes, you are busy. But I mean, that's important. I mean, you need to Google yourself. You need to see what people are saying about you, because maybe it's not something, maybe it's not an interview, maybe it's not a blog post or an article or something like that. Maybe somebody mentioned your name. And you really have to check. And then I have the name of a country western singer's wife, so then I always have to decipher. But no, I Google myself pretty much every month.
And there are other Bonnie McDaniels out there. One of them is a scientist. I forgot what kind of scientist it is. And I was like, oh man.
Right. Exactly.
She's a heady sister. I thought I was. But
I mean, it's important that people really monitor what they put out there. I mean, even if they don't understand personal branding, they just really have to be careful. And, if they want a private account, they need to really keep it private. Don't have your colleagues on your private account. Like, it's all those little things that people don't think of. It's like, oh, everybody's friendly, but it's like, no.
Exactly.
Really, no, that's not a good idea.
My daughter has a Twitter account and she won't let me on it. So I'm like,
right.
Okay, what are you posting that? Anyway, it's her business.
Right.
So,
and then there's Instagram. So it's all these things. And then you have to be careful who you comment with, because I can Google myself and see comments that maybe I've made. Maybe it's a political comment or something happened, you know, that was like racially charged, and people are just commenting on the news.
And you have to be very, very careful
be
when
very
you start
careful.
engaging in those kinds of conversations, because sometimes they can go off the grid.
Right.
And, you know, they have what they call trolls
Right.
that are out there who bait you.
Right.
And you get all your emotions. Just remember, these are not your family and friends. These are these people who are on the internet, and I don't want to say this in a very condescending way. They really don't matter in your real life.
They don't matter, and they could ruin your life. Yeah. I have deleted comments because sometimes I was finished talking, but the rest of the conversation start going south real fast. Let me go back up here and delete my stuff. Yeah, and I just deleted it.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to be very, very careful, because you're putting your image and your brand out there, and you're basically saying to people, this is who I am.
Right. I mean, there are these young men that they did this. They were playing around, and they did this rap, and they were at VCU, and they did this thing called Black Excellence. And it was very interesting. They received sponsorships right away, like Windsor Tie and all this stuff. And then sometimes they'll put something on Snapchat or something, and I'm just like, I will literally inbox them and say, this is Auntie Denise. Get that off of there.
Yeah. No,
and they understand. They get it.
You're looking out for them.
Yeah.
And I've had young women who
yes, that's another
who
thing.
It's like, you're not supposed to show all your body parts.
No.
You are. I have a friend, Angela mentioned, who she wrote a book called "You're More Than Your Assets."
Yes.
And talking about young women who think that that's the way to market their brand. Because, honey, I have to tell you, when you get my age, it falls down. And you better have something else other than that. It all goes south. Exactly.
Brains or boss.
Exactly.
That should be the title of the next book. Brains
I like that.
or boss.
I love the title. Yeah.
That's true.
Because the stuff
when everything goes wide and down, your brain is still there.
Exactly.
Up at the top.
Exactly. So you do, before we run out of time.
Sure.
There are many layers to L. Denise Jackson, and you have a corporate series that either is it out or it's coming?
No, it will be coming out next month.
And the idea is to go and do workshops and so forth.
Speak in corporate about leadership development, which is very much needed. And I'm going to have something specifically for the millennials. I'm going to be speaking at University of Maryland.
I love it.
Yes, at their it's a National College Women Student Leaders conference. So I'll be speaking there. So I'm going to be debuting my millennial books there. So I'm really excited about that. But it's about leadership, what it's going to take. The series is going to be called 2020 Foresight because, number one, 2020 is an important year, but it really is about your sight and really seeing the foresight of things and planning for that. And if you don't, your company's going to struggle. There's going to be a lot of changes on sustainability, things that the government's putting into place, all these different things. There are a lot of people that are going to be coming into this country. So if you don't position yourself and work on it now, it's going to be tough, whether you're looking for a job, whether you're a CEO, whether you're coming out of college, whether you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. You really do have to have that foresight. And even though it's only 2016, 2020 will be here before you know it.
Before you know it.
Yeah. And now is the time to begin to lay that foundation, if you will, for what that's going to look like for you.
Exactly.
So you have your corporate series. Do you go and do speaking in general?
Yes.
For companies?
Yes, I do. Sometimes people, they need motivation or team engagement. When my corporate breaks that I took to do something different that I hadn't done before, I built teams. I've been in situations where I was the youngest in the organization with the best budget in the organization. So I teach people, how to be, sometimes you have to be unorthodox, but you still have to keep focus as to what the general result is, which is more money. You make it and you save it, and you get the result to get to the win. And that's what I help people do. So one of the things that I deal with individuals, because some people want to grow and they really don't know how to get to the next level. I help them create their own opportunities versus waiting for them to appear.
Okay. So I was going to ask you what's next. Have I missed anything?
Wow, what's next? So there's a lot. One thing that I want to do, I think that women in general need more than the general soft skills leadership. I think that there are a lot of conferences, and a lot of times we go over the same thing, but we're not really coming to any resolve. Like, I've been to tons of conferences, but they didn't help me when I was in the position myself.
And soft skills are extremely important, because those are the things that keep you from being asked to come to the table. Communication skills, things like saying please and thank you are important. Being gracious and not being so quick to fly off the handle. A lot of young people, they call it popping off. It's like, what's with that?
That whole entitlement piece.
Yeah.
Right. So soft skills are a great foundation to get started before you get to the next layer of the corporate savvy professional development that you need. So it seems when I go to events, it's the same things taught over and over again. I'm like, okay, what about that next level? What about talking to them about sponsorships and somebody to champion and cheerlead for them? Even if they're coming out of college, like, you should always have a mentor. So some of the things are taught.
That's so important. But you know what? Even if I've always had a mentor.
I have too, all the time.
Because the worst place, and I say this all the time, the worst place to operate is in your own head. You need someone else who's looking at you and doing it objectively, who will say to you, maybe you want to tweak that a little bit. It's so important to have that mentor, a sounding board of someone who really cares about you, but also someone that you can trust to give you the right advice.
My three main mentors were my mother, somebody that did look like me, and somebody that didn't look like me. And if I had those three, I was fine. But I normally had more than those two. I normally have like anywhere 3 to 5 mentors at a time, because I need people for different situations, for different things.
Exactly.
But that's important. And, some of that, I'm not sure that that's always taught. So, I mean, I help people with social and emotional intelligence and really how to use that, because a lot of people go into an organization and they just adopt the culture and they lose themselves.
Yeah. You have to really look at what is it that I'm bringing. And if you're bringing something, that means you've put yourself in the position of leadership. And on that note, we're going to have to go. So if you would look in the camera and tell people how to get in touch with you, that would be wonderful.
Wonderful. So you can reach me online at ldenisejackson.com. That's LDENISE Jackson.com. And my bookstore is there. Everything that you need, contact information, whatever you need in leadership or business strategy development, just let me know. Give me an email or a call, and I'll be more than happy to help you.
Denise, you are a pro, my dear. And I really thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I know that you are going to walk away with some great wisdom from this interview this morning. That's going to wrap it up for us here at Metro Magazine. And as always, I know you could have been someplace else, but the fact that you decided to spend your morning with us, I am so grateful. That's going to wrap it up. So I will see you same time, same place on the flip side.